Actually, I hope this talk really builds on what Abigail spoke about as well, because the 8-minute thing is really cool. The 888 obviously leaves activities, I'd hypothesize, for a lot of us as the space where we maybe want to take a bit more care and be a bit more deliberate about how we use our time. So we'll probably all go away from tonight thinking, yeah, I'm super motivated, I really want to do that 8-minute thing that they mentioned, but then we need to keep it going. So we're like motivated now, we're motivated tomorrow morning, and then we stay motivated for a while until we sustain that and it becomes habit. And then you can move on to the next one. Sound good? Sweet. So who am I to... Oh, God. Sorry. See, I'm too quick, I'm trying to get through. So who am I to talk to you about all of this? Nice. So I did economics at university, did a year with an investment bank, did a couple of years strategy consulting, worked 35 hours in a row one time, worked 35 days in a row one time, and fundamentally, I guess, was very conscious of my time, but also my physical and mental health took a bit of a beating. And as a result, 2 years later, moved on to a sports marketing agency where I finished work at 6 p.m. So I was very close to that 888 that we were talking about, and spent some of my activity time to qualify as a personal trainer. That was about 4 years ago. Since then, I've been training people one-to-one, trained groups, trained bigger groups, to the point today where I've founded the company Innerfit, helping companies and everyone at companies feel healthier and basically work better, because if you feel well, you work well. So that's the angle I'm kind of coming at from today. And one of the main things I've learned, I guess, is as a personal trainer, you think, oh, anatomy and physiology, everyone really wants to know about that. And nutrition, like everyone wants to know about carbs and proteins and fats and all of that stuff that comes with it. But actually, you can share all the information you want. Unless someone's motivated to do it and they stick at it, it's a massive waste of everyone's time. So, and I see nodding heads because we all do it, right? It's a pretty simple thing. We all feel like we're going to do something with the best intentions and then it falls by the wayside. So, how can I help specifically? I did do a bit of a walk around at the beginning, asking what we want to get from this. So one was like just practical tips that we can take home. When I say motivation and healthy habits, I'm quitting smoking. So nice and ambitious. Any other things that we want to get from this next 30 minutes, just under? Shout out as we go if you want to. But
when is the best time of day to exercise? So like hacks, because obviously it's
yeah.
So I'm like in.
Yeah. Good question. So everyone's different. Say like genetics means 25% of us are night owls, 25% of us are morning people, 50% somewhere in the middle. So for some people, getting it done in the morning because you feel high energy is absolutely amazing. It sets you up for a really good day. Other people, you're obviously not feeling like that in the morning, and later on at night is going to be the better time. So the one thing to be conscious of there, I guess, is the type of exercise you're doing. Again, depending on your pre-bedtime routine, and if you have a really good one in which you meditate and you bring your body back down to a calm state, you can exercise. Like, it's a myth that you can't exercise at high intensity in the evening, as long as you have a really good wind-down routine. Equally, that said, stuff like your yoga and your slightly slower activity can be good. And that's not forgetting lunch as well. There's a ton of studies that actually show getting out at lunch, going for a walk, and putting in more time for exercise during the day is a really positive thing for your productivity in the afternoon. So everyone's schedule is different, and it's not always realistic for people to do that. But in answer to your question, it depends on you and your schedule, I guess. Cool. All right. So what we're going to talk about now is your situation, some challenges that we might face, and then I'm going to try and share some solutions and talk about what next. So ultimately, like I said, this is all about what happens next. So if it's your 8-minute meditation or it's something else, we really want to do something. Sound good? Beautiful. Okay, so with the person next to you, and maybe someone else if you need to be in a three, think of an achievement you are really proud of and just talk about it for a bit. And how did you do it? So this could be anything, like you did amazing at an exam, you passed something, you did something really kind. 60 seconds, go. Okay, that's about halfway. That's about halfway. "15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. 3, 2, and 1. Nice. Okay. Who's going to be brave enough to share something that came up? And because this is talk about motivation, you get a prize. It's a £2 worth of protein water voucher. This will get you. So yeah, nice. Bang. Okay. What we proud of?
So March 2018, I ran my first half marathon. I went from not even doing a 5k run. I went straight into training 6 months and did my first half marathon in the snow, -3.
Wow.
Well done.
Yeah. How did you do it? What was the?
Left my ex-husband, and I, instead of having a bucket list, I had a freedom list. So all the things I was going to do after leaving him, and running a half marathon was one of them.
Cool. Nice. Second round of applause. It was that good. Anyone else want to win a protein drink? Was that hand up? No. God no. That was. Anyone else proud of anything they've done in the last 10 years? Because there was a lot of chat there, so obviously something happened, or we were just talking.
One is always your kids, isn't it? And spending 20 years dedicated to your kids.
Yeah,
which
nice.
I've done, and I've got good kids. And then the other one is I set up my own business last year, and getting myself clients and being freelance and believing in myself. And that's what my target is.
Nice. Believing in yourself.
Yes.
So you believed in yourself, and that was one of the big things that helped you make all of this happen. Yeah.
Yes, I go through moments of
Yeah.
going now and
Sporadically.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do this, and then you do 185 hours for an awards dinner and everything else in 3.5 weeks. You have blocks of fabulousness, and then where you just go.
Yeah. Different brackets of time.
Yes.
Good.
Exactly.
I'm going to keep trying to do that. Okay, so we're going to think about our health and well. Oh yeah, round of applause. Thank you. So we're going to think about health and well-being now. Same thing again. What do you want to achieve this time? So this might be a little bit more thought on your own first, but what do you want to achieve? What came into mind when we were talking about that 8 minutes before? What's coming into your mind now? And let's be specific on health and well-being for the purpose of this.
Be the best version of ourselves that we can be.
What does that look like?
It will all depend on the person.
Yeah.
Ability is different,
Yeah, nice. So specifically, what would we want to achieve then for you? If I could be bold enough to ask you to think about you being the best version of you, what does that mean right now?
Not what you're saying, for sure.
Ah.
No, but it's just obviously you just look at you and just like, I could improve this, whether it's a health routine from fitness to
Yeah.
habits to I don't know, being more efficient with my time or more productive. If I'm talking to my boss, I don't know. Just
So
the same but better.
it's starting to happen there a little bit, like you're getting a bit more specific on what we wanted. So one of the things I'll often talk about, for example, where motivation has become so important for me is like through over 300 one-to-one consultations now. So half an hour, sit down, what's your goal? What's your reality today? What's your options for getting there, and what will you do next? It's like a grow framework, which you can kind of apply yourselves after this if you really want to. Goal, reality, options, will. And the goal is often the place, I think, like Abigail said with that brick wall on the third bit of that slide, is if you're not really clear on like what that goal is, it's really hard to get there. So what do you want to achieve is a really important first step. What is the goal, and can you measure it? How are you going to do that? And when people say, I want to get fit and tone up, okay, what does that look like? Does that mean that you want to think about body fat percentage, or does that mean that you want to look at the mirror and feel really confident? It's like measuring that and then putting a point in time, like a half marathon, where you know by that moment you've got to make it happen. And I think a lot of the time that's where the motivation starts. Cool? Let's keep.
I think
Nice.
And then like today, there was the downpour, and I was like,
Yeah.
And I didn't go, and like this should have been like, you know, because it's like it should have been the first day I go, because I didn't go yesterday, and I thought, so I thought I should have gone, but like as soon as that rain was there, I was like, I've got this call and I've got this call, and like I just didn't go, and now I'm sort of thinking now that's left me with like another 3 days of this week, so I'll have to go like to make it up. I'm trying to go 3 times a week, and if not twice, but I try not to sort of deviate from the I've given myself. But like I said, as soon as I made a point of trying to go lunchtime, because I knew like hit 5 o'clock when it goes dark, I'm never gonna go.
Yeah.
So it's like, so I'm trying to motivate myself to keep going now through the winter, and like not be put off by it's raining.
Yeah, that's so good though. Like Sarah and I were talking before, and we were mentioning like cycling to work. Now is a really good time to get in habits, because the weather is going to suck in a little bit. So if you can form that habit now, you're going to be able to get through. So hopefully the rest of this is useful, and it also does go on to a little bit of this little group exercise. So last time we have a little talk together. Describe a time when you were feeling really motivated to be healthy. It could be recent, it could be absolutely ages ago, but 30 seconds. Think of a moment when you're thinking, right, yeah, I'm really motivated right now to be healthy. Go. Watch. What? Because you're looking at them thinking, oh, I want to be that way. Yeah. Good. Do you mind saying that in a minute? That was good. Watching Love Island. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. 15 seconds. 10, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. So that was a quick one. Quick, chuck out some ideas there. One person has already said watching Love Island, which is brilliant. When did you feel really motivated? Give me a time. This group, yes. Abigail, nice.
So this is really, I've never shared this publicly before, but I just feel like now is the time to share it. I did an event last year, like must have been February and March time. So obviously I'd had Christmas, and the thing about when you work your own business, like you work so much. So I wasn't really in a good exercise habit routine, and so then I did this event, and I looked at the photos the photographer had taken, and I was just like, oh my god, I've got such a bad double chin. I was so embarrassed. I had to say to him, can you airbrush these? He was like, yeah, don't worry about it, I can do all sorts of other things as well. Loads of people ask me, who's this guy? But the overriding voice in my head was there were people in the room who saw you, but equally, what was the ultimate lesson? It wasn't that it is wrong to look one way or another way. It was just this wasn't my standard. It wasn't my standard that I was so out of balance with how much time I was working, how much time I was exercising, and then ultimately how that was making me feel. So looking at those photos was like the kick in the butt I needed to join the gym next door, even though it was really cold. And actually on the day I joined, I had a big coat on because it had snowed. It was that ridiculous time when it snowed for like a week. So every single time I went to the gym, the photo kept popping up of me like this in my coat, just with that, you know when you just join the gym like, fuck it, I don't really want to be here face. But then I just kept going, and kept going, and then I was going insanely and my legs really hurt, and I started chatting to one of the trainers who was like, you're not stretching properly. Long story short, I ended up working out with one of the personal trainers, which then got me into a weekly thing of a routine. And once I got into a routine, I'm now back to my standard. Does that make sense?
Pretty much illustrates the whole presentation, really, I think. But so there's like an initial spark where you have that moment where you're like, right, let's go. So you got motivated, and then you stayed motivated with a bit of accountability. There's an interesting one. There's a book called Drive: The Surprising Truth About Motivation, and it's by a neuroscientist. And he talks about how a lot of addicts, they stop their addiction when they like look in the mirror and they see something and they're like, that's not me. There's just like a moment where they feel disgust is the word he uses. And it's not necessarily because it's a terrible thing, but in that person's head, they feel different and disgusted compared to where they want to be or where they're used to being. And that's often the catalyst for what follows. And then you go and you drive towards that habit, which you then create. Thank you very much. Next one is describe a time when you struggled to be motivated. Again, real quick, 30 seconds. Be honest, as you like to be, and we'll come back. Watching Love Island. Yeah, that we were chatting about that before. Yeah, it's hard being in an office. Like, I kind of forget because you're always like moving around. But when someone's birthday every week. Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say cool. Yeah. 15. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, awesome. One quick answer on this, and then I'll talk a little bit more. Who could be brave enough to describe a time they struggled to stay motivated to be healthy? Perfect, yeah, which is coming up. What's going on in December then? December's hard because... Yeah, booze, sugar, yeah, and they all have a bit of a negative spiral effect kind of thing.
Yeah, and then like comes January, I've eaten too much, got to go on that crash diet.
Yeah. Well, interesting you mentioned that, because New Year's resolutions fail a lot of the time. So this is the latest data. By the end of the year, 3/4 of New Year's resolutions have failed. Even to be honest with you, I think by May is when more people have failed than have actually stuck to their resolutions. So if everyone is trying to set a New Year's resolution and 3/4 of us are failing, there's obviously something going on there with how we're approaching motivation and healthy habits. So thanks for mentioning December. Why do we fail? It varies by person, but self-belief came up as a big one. We're low energy. We set the wrong goal in the first place. A lot of the time someone wants to get really good at running, but they hate running, but they think, I really want to do running. It's the wrong goal. don't bother doing that. You'd be amazed how many people actually do that. It's really, really common. Slow progress, we mentioned before, like it's nice to get quick results, it's nice to get quick wins. Your brain will come onto it, releases dopamine, which is responsible for motivation. It's part of our reward system. And if you get quick results early, release dopamine, you're more likely to enjoy that task and continue going on with it. No clarity, which is why I was pushing so hard on that point earlier, because it's great to say, I want to tone up and get fit, but what does that mean? And no encouragement and accountability are big ones as well. So I did a talk at a media agency last week, and one person at the end said, thanks for the talk, blah, 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 I really want to cycle into work. So I said, okay, well, tell me, in 2 weeks' time, tomorrow, tell me that you've cycled into work, and the next day, and if I don't hear from you, I'll know that either A, you've not done it, or B, you've been knocked off your bike. And I'll be really nervous about that. So she emailed me, and she did it. And she emailed me today, and she did that as well. It's just so simple. Like, you tell someone you're going to do it, you do it. So the brain is complicated saying that. So you obviously try and simplify things down. Guesses for how many neurons are in our brain? Thousands, tens of thousands, billions. I can tell you, well, it's one of these. Yeah, it's the biggest number, 100 billion. There you go. Next one. How much does your brain weigh as a percentage of your total body weight? 1%, 2%, or 3%? 3? Most people, 1. I mean, 2. Good. Which is interesting because our brain uses about 20% of our energy. So if you think about how small that is and how much energy we use.
We only use 20% of our brain. We don't use as much brain as, we only use
Oh, right, yeah.
don't we?
Yeah, different thing. But yeah, imagine how much energy we would use. Yeah. See, brain complex, lots of stuff going on. How much of our brain is fat? Hands up for 40. Hands up for 60. Hands up for 80. I can reveal you're in the middle and you're right. Good. So brain's complicated. How long can it take to form a habit? This is an interesting one. 21 days? 6 weeks? Depends what?
On the frequency?
6 weeks.
If you do it once a week, then it's just different to do it every day. No?
Yes. So the answer is it depends. So obviously, a lot of us think 21 days is how long it takes to form a habit. A lot of us think 3 months. The answer is actually, it depends on the complexity of the task you're doing. So the curve is essentially showing this red line. That's a really simple thing. So you might want to eat an apple once a week, and therefore you put an apple on your desk on a Monday morning and you eat it. Simple. Quitting smoking would be an example of something which is a bit more complex because it's so integrated into your life and your behaviours and your habits. So it depends. The point here is don't give up if it hasn't really stuck as a habit in the first little bit. And that's from some good research. So good. Monkey. Has anyone come across the book, The Chimp Paradox?
Yeah.
Care to explain? Yeah. No, it's essentially like a really good book by a guy called Steve Peters, who's helped the Team GB cycling squad and multiple other athletes achieve massive success. And what he does is simplify the brain into a model where you've got three parts. So you've got your prefrontal cortex at the front, which is responsible for a lot of rational thinking, logical discussion in your head. That's the human at the front there. You've got your chimp, which is your emotional, quite quick, the bit that wants to go for that fourth piece of brownie when you didn't really need the fourth piece of brownie, because your human knows that it's logical to not eat that because it's not conducive to toning up and losing weight, you know? Which is tricky because your third part of your brain, the computer at the back, is basically where your hard-coded habits go. So whatever your human and chimp decide becomes your autopilot at the back of your brain, your habits, your hard-coded, which is tricky because all of a sudden you don't start thinking about it. If it's that cigarette, you haven't even thought about that. That's just hard-coded habit. So the idea here is to manage your chimp as best you can and give your human, your prefrontal cortex, as much power and responsibility for your decision-making as possible. That's when you get your hard-coded habits at the back in your computer. So the human is slow, help it. Your chimp is quick, manage it. Your computer is super, super, super quick, so make sure it's getting fed the right stuff. Cool? Beautiful. So we're going to do a few tips on the human. Now we're good. Let's, conscious of time, bang. If you've got questions about this, ask me afterwards. James Cracknell was interesting on the right because he had a massive bike accident, smashed his prefrontal cortex, and basically his personality changed. So his rational brain basically was less responsible decision making, was more emotional, more angry. Similarly, this guy ages ago had a massive pole go through his eye and prefrontal cortex, because something blew up and his personality changed. So there's reports about how his friend said he was just a different man. I thought that was just interesting, really. Everyone's looking at me like, whoa. So there you go. Computer, unconscious, automatic, inflexible, slow, and incremental. Pardon?
They say head injuries change personality and they can become much.
Yeah. So that's what happens. Prefrontal cortex smashes front of skull, bang. Solutions. So quick story here. A client, one-to-one, basically had a wedding as a big motivator. Very clear milestone, very clear on what weight she wanted to be, very clear on how she wanted to look, created a very clear path to success, and she officially was the lightest she'd been in 7 years. Now, motivation and healthy habits isn't all about weight, but the reason I'm showing this example is because she absolutely smashed it, because she had a clear goal, a clear plan, and she managed her chimp well at times. She put her human in the driving seat, and now, 6 months on, after getting married, she's all good, continuing to crack on. So hopefully we can all achieve this success by setting our plan, managing our chimp, and hard-coding some habits. All right, your plan. We're going to fly through this. If you want to go through questions and stuff afterwards, then that's absolutely fine. It's really nice to make it realistic. So 90 days. What's your 90-day plan? What does success look in 90 days? Then break that down to the 30-day process. So how are you going to hit your 30-day target and what are you going to do to achieve that? And then what is your one-day process? So how does your 30-day thing actually equate into a small action? So it might be that you want to do that tone-up goal. And your 30-day process might be that you need to be healthy each week, exercise 3 times, eat well 5 out of 7 days. Your one-day process might get really specific on what your lunches look like, for example. And this is something that I've done in the past and had success with too. Cool? So that's plan for human. 2 is where it gets interesting. So I'm going to share 7 pillars of change. And the idea is that you might like one of these, cling on to it, and this could help you manage your chimp. So number 1 is know your why. Know the reason why you're doing it. So for your half marathon, if it's quite tough, you know why you're doing it. But when I say know your why, I mean your deep-rooted why. So a friend, Luke Taberski, an endurance adventurer, his first run was an ultra marathon through the desert for 100 miles. But he knew his why, and that he'd been battling with a lot of mental health issues and has now gone on to write a book explaining how he chased extreme and battled that and used exercise to come through and try and help inspire other people. So it's not the aesthetic why, I want to look good at the party. It's like, really, why do you want to do this? And that's a good place to start. 2 is believe in yourself. So whether you think you can or you can't, you're often right. And that's a quote from Henry Ford. All things are created twice kind of thing. If you see yourself succeeding, then you can do it. If you've not seen that before, it's really hard to actually make it happen. Tip number 3, know your triggers. So if a trigger might be someone arriving in the office because it's someone's birthday with a birthday cake and biscuits, and your immediate reaction is to see that and think, oh my God, I'm going to rush over there and grab some. That could be noted down as your trigger. So just wait it out for 60 seconds and then see what happens. Things like that. Actually, on the meditation, I use the trigger of having a cup of tea to do 2 minutes meditation. And that action, if you just set that up front and say, every time I have a cup of tea and flick that switch, I'm going to do 2 minutes meditation, all of a sudden it's very easy to hit 8 minutes meditation in a day. And that was something that worked for me over 90 days as well. So just an idea there on triggers. Number 4, we spoke about sleep. It's huge. As a PT, you help people like achieve exercise goals, and you ask about diet and exercise. A lot of the time I was doing that and people weren't achieving their goals. And then you ask questions about sleep and you discover people are getting 4 or 5 hours sleep. That's a massive, massive challenge. One study showed that in a sleep deprived group who got no sleep whatsoever, their chimp was 60% more responsible for decision making. So if you're not sleeping well, the next day, as Abigail mentioned before, you're going to be more likely to overeat and also less likely to exercise. Reward yourself. So talking about dopamine again, reward in the sense of, it doesn't always have to be food kind of thing. But if you reward yourself, you're more likely to repeat a behavior again. So if you do really well over the next week, make sure you say well done to yourself and pat yourself on the back. 6 is have a growth mindset. Has anyone come across the book Mindset by Carol Dweck? Very good. In brief, 2 mindsets. You can be fixed mindset or growth mindset. Fixed mindset says, oh, I've fallen off the wagon, I failed, I suck. The growth mindset, which is much more useful, is I've fallen off the wagon, I'm human, let's get back on again. And there's a real thing about the New Year's resolutions. People that generally succeed are the ones that have fallen off, but they get back on it within 7 days. There's something about the sweet spot of 7 days. So if you don't go swimming, for example, yesterday, today, if you go again in the next 7 days and then go again and again and again, you're more likely to succeed. And 7 is just start really, really, really small. So 8 minutes in a day is not that much. And your chimp has actually been shown to get scared of too much novelty. So if you try and do too many things at once, chimp goes a bit scared and you end up just being paralyzed into doing nothing. And if you start small and keep changing, your brain is literally going to physically change. So the principle of neuroplasticity, there's been a lot of research around recently. You're literally rewiring neural pathways in your brain to say different messages and different things to yourself. So that, hopefully one of those was useful for everyone. And your change, this is our computer, Aristotle quote. It's always good to end on a philosopher quote. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but habit. So being the best version of yourself and being excellent is kind of what we want to do, right? I think that brings us to what comes next. Who has something in their head that they're thinking, right, I'm going to try and do that? Yeah, good. Give us a nod. Just give us a nod if you're a bit bamboozled by the whole thing. So yeah, start small, try and pick one thing and make a commitment, because we all know what we need to do, but sometimes we just don't do it. I've heard that so many times, and it's true of myself as well. The question is, what will we do now? And then what will we be able to keep doing? Because the evidence shows that if you make a progress report and commitment to a friend, you're a lot more likely to actually make it happen rather than just leaving it as an unwritten goal in our head right now. So I'd really, 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 really encourage everyone to use what's in your mind at the moment, go home, put it on a bit of paper, tell someone you trust, and then have them hold you accountable. in a couple of weeks. I'd be more than happy to be that person if you would like to. And I think that is me done. Has anyone got any questions or things? Yes.
Can I just share like a random thing, just to come on to what Chris is saying about how little changes could make a big result? One girl shared last week, every time she goes to the loo, sorry to be in the cubicle, she does 25 squats. Once she's like been to the loo, she then does 25 squats. So she's got this thing where she just wanted to do more squats, but she didn't have the time. So she's like...
That's cool. So that's our trigger. The trigger is the toilet.
Obviously she don't tell the whole room, and I've now shared her story, but...
Yeah, who is she? What's her name?
But in essence, it's just, it goes to show like that these tiny things can, you know, fight...
Yeah.
Push-ups.
In the loop.
As it yeah, that's brilliant.
I think they must have really big, nice big hips.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
It's a building with Canary Wharf, they've got a lot of space over there. Really?
Yeah. But no, I mean, it's like, that's that kind of thing, isn't it? It's just...
Like where there's a will, there's a way. If you just like, haven't got time, it might be raining outside, so I'm just going to go to the loo. I did squats this morning.
Yeah.
In the shower, I was like, I'm not doing 25. I fucking hate squats. I did 8. So 8.
Eight's good.
8 squats got in the shower, and I'm like, right, I'm going to do 8 again every day. And
Yeah. Start small.
Legs are the thing I hate, but you know, it's,
Why legs?
I just hate doing legs.
Yeah.
Arms
Well,
are easy.
it sounds
I
like...
hate legs in general.
Yeah.
I go to the gym to do that.
I think that's awesome. And everyone's going to be different, right? So your goal, being clear on how many squats you do, is going to be really different to probably what's in other people's heads at the moment. Anyone brave enough to make a public commitment about what they're thinking about doing?
Shout my mantra into my bathroom mirror when I clean my teeth every day.
Love it.
I can see you doing that.
Literally.
I can
Yeah, that's
see
good.
your work.
So that's the trigger again, isn't
It
it?
comes through to me every day, so I just need to just say it, because you need to say it out loud. There's
Mhm.
no point in thinking it in your head.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'm going to do is stop beating myself up.
Mm.
I'm going, oh, I haven't done this, I haven't done that, I haven't done this, I haven't done that. I'm literally just getting this sort of, and then I literally do nothing.
Yeah. Beating yourself up is like,
Oh, it's the worst.
just comes out so
We
often.
all do it.
Yeah.
Like going for the swimming, I'll beat myself up because I haven't gone swimming.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to beat myself up a bit more because I feel
Yeah. And then you're guilty, and then you don't go.
And then you don't go because you
Yeah.
think, oh, what's the point?
Yeah, there's a researcher in California, I think, called Kelly McDoniel, Kelly something, and she talks about forgiving yourself as like one of the best things you can do to actually make something happen. Like, it's fine to eat too much. It's fine if you drink and then you have a bad day on a hangover and you eat a little bit more than you would do normally. The idea is just try and forgive yourself and get back on it, really.
Forgive yourself for your past as well.
Yeah.
That's a massive thing. So
Yeah.
you go very
Well, we could go real philosophical and the 0 to 7 years old thing, yeah. Start unraveling all of that. Yeah. But it's hard because, like, you think about birthdays and weddings and we celebrate with treats. So naturally, when you're 50, you think...
Do you find that everybody gives food as treats? Because when my children were little, it's like, oh, let's buy them a treat. Oh, it always ends up being food.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, a lot.
Why? Because
Yeah.
I was given food as a treat.
Yeah.
When I was
Yeah. We were talking about that this lunchtime at a different law firm.
It's like not fair.
But no, like, finding you enjoy other stuff other than food, right? So you're not going to buy yourself a new pair of trainers or running shoes all the time, but buying yourself a nice piece of kit, yeah. But just alternatives.
Donuts are cheap.
But giving yourself time.
How often do you find yourself falling on and off the wagon for your own personal?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, quite often, to be fair. Like, work is probably the reason most of the time, because you do your own thing, and then all of a sudden, for 2 weeks in a row, you've been out every night. Not like getting boozed, like doing talks, or going to an event, or seeing someone. Yeah. But yeah, The honest answer is like relatively frequently, but I try and set up mechanisms to make sure that I get back on it. So my mum and my sister, I've got a WhatsApp group with them and we share our little win for the day. And it just helps you get that momentum. And we've done it for ages now because it's just become habit. The 90-day, 30-day, one-day process thing is literally how I set up every quarter of my life. So I've written down, my values are health, wealth and relationships like love. So health for me means movement, nutrition, mindset. I literally write down a week thing, one day thing for each of those things. Wealth is obviously the business targets. Relationships is, okay, when am I visiting my family, all that stuff. So like, I try and build it into the calendar as much as possible, and then when it's in the calendar, then it's less likely to fail. But I think it's pretty natural to fall off every now and again, isn't it? Yeah. We all struggle with it. What about you?
Me?
Yeah, how about yourself?
Kind of chase the wagon.
Just want to get on the wagon, stupid wagon.
You left me behind.
Well, I hope you're going home a bit more motivated to try and do stuff. Perfect. Oh yeah, sweet. Put your hands up if you're feeling a little bit better than you were before you came to this thing. Awesome. Well done, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.